We're talking about who's going to lead the Philadelphia Eagles in targets in 2022. Guys, this is broken down. It's been a research for you. I got a lot of insights you're not going to miss in this video, so stick with me. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Stephen Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel. Sports Channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Hey, what's good, guys? If you're new to the channel, maybe the first, second, third time you caught my content, if I can ask you to do me a huge solid here, guys, hit that subscribe button. We just crossed over 5,000 subscribers. We're marching towards 10,000. I would love to add you to that community. Just need you to hit the subscribe button to do so. To my OG subscribers, I can just ask you guys to keep hitting that thumbs up button, keep hitting the like button. Hey, it's what spikes the algorithm, gets us out there in front of new audience members that we could potentially convert into our own little community members here. All right, y'all, today's topic. We're talking about target shares, guys. I got a lot of stuff broken down. If you all missed yesterday's video, I'll link it at the end of today's video. I broke down projections of what I think it would take for Jalen Hurts to potentially gain that second contract. Like, how do I think the Eagles are going to evaluate this just based off of very surface level stats, guys? And believe me, it goes a lot deeper than what I gave you, but it's certainly useful information. We're going to build off of that today, guys. All right? So we're talking targets. We know that the Eagles have built a new offense around Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, they went out and got one of his best friends in A.J. Brown and brought him here, traded for him. They drafted a guy in Calcaterra at tight end that knows Jalen Hurts, and they seem to have some chemistry together from their time in Oklahoma. I mean, this is Jalen's team. They're definitely putting the pieces to fit around Jalen Hurts, right? Bringing in his dudes to kind of make this complete. So with that said, I wanted to go back and I wanted to take a look at Nick Sirianni's offense last year. I want to talk about personnel groupings, 11, 12, 13, 20, 21, 22-man personnel, 10 personnel, 1 personnel, 0 personnel, whatever. Talk about where the numbers lied, and then talk about target shares. What can I tell you from breaking all this information down about target shares, and what kind of wrongful predictions can I make? Because let's be honest, guys, it's really hard to project this stuff, but I'll give you my best educated guess, where I'm not just making things up out of thin air. I'm actually using some sort of data to kind of give you why I think this may trend in this direction. So stick around, guys. This is going to be a really, really interesting topic. We're going to start off with personnel frequency groupings and talk about Nick Sirianni's offense. Let's talk about Nick Sirianni and personnel grouping frequencies, right? So how often we had the offense aligned in like 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 20 personnel, so forth and so forth, guys. I'm going to break this up into large chunks. Later on, during the offseason, guys, I will break down by the play numbers, the games, the weeks. I'll break all that stuff down to you guys when it comes to how we aligned through quarters of the season, all that kind of stuff, all right? On the year, 64% of our snaps came out of 11-man personnel, meaning 3 wide receivers on the field, 1 tight end, 1 running back. With more than 1 tight end on the field. So we're talking 12, we're talking 13 personnel, and 2 personnel. We actually ran snaps out of each of those. 25% out of 12, 8% out of 13-man personnel, and then 1% out of 2 personnel. So, multiple tight ends, 401 total snaps on the year, or put another way, 34% of our snaps had more than 1 tight end on the field. More than 1 running back on the field. So we're talking 20, 21, 22, and 23 personnel, right? The first number always indicates the amount of running backs. The second number indicates the amount of tight ends, guys. That's how you figure that out. Then you have 5 skill position players, so take those 2 numbers and subtract it from 5, and you know exactly how many wide receivers are on the field at that point in time. So we played 1% of our snaps, or 20 total snaps, with more than 1 running back on the field. 2 backs on the field, basically. And then on the year, we had 3 plays in total where we had 4 wide receivers on the field. That comes out of 1 personnel and 10 personnel, so either with a running back on the field with those 4 wide receivers, or with a tight end on the field with those 4 wide receivers. So, Nick Sirianni definitely upticked in 11-man personnel over what we saw from Doug. I don't think it's because Doug was adverse to running 3 wide receiver sets, guys. I think he was forced into it because of the personnel and some of the misses. Let's be honest, some of the challenges we had with getting receivers in here to Philadelphia during Doug's tenure. So, let's talk about how you take this information, right, personnel grouping frequencies, and apply this to the overall feel of the football team and basically what we did with the lion's share of these targets, right? Because I can tell you right now that 34% marker for tight ends does not give you a great indication of how tight ends were used because there was not a lot of targets outside of Dallas Goedert for tight ends. On the 2021 NFL season, guys, the Philadelphia Eagles offense had 457 passing attempts, okay? It was mainly divided up between 6 players. So 6 players accounted for 404 out of 457 targets, which is roughly 88% of all targets. 6 players were heavily dependent upon in the offense last season. I'm going to tell you the first thing that we're going to talk about today is that I think we're going to take that overall number from 6, and I think because of the way that we have added incredible talent and the fact that we have paid money to guys like Dallas Goedert, we've paid money to guys like A.J. Brown, we have spent a top 10 pick on DeVonta Smith, and we have an emerging player in Quez Watkins. I think we're going to go from 6 players to 4 players getting a really, really high amount of the snap share. But let's start with last year and let's talk about those 6 players. DeVonta Smith led all players in targets with 110. Dallas Goedert was second with 84 targets. Sorry, guys. Quez Watkins was third with 68 targets. Jalen Reagor was fourth with 57 targets. Kenneth Gainwell was fifth with 50 targets. And then Miles Sanders was sixth with 35 targets. Here's the deal. If I only took... I want to give you guys a calculation of where I'm going to be insinuating differences. If I took DeVonta, Dallas, Quez, and Jalen Reagor's numbers, and I brought them together, it's 319 out of 457 targets, which means last season our top 4 players had about 70% of all of our, kind of targets sold to them, right? Then when you added in Gainwell and Sanders, it upticks another 18%. What I am advocating this season is that when I broke it down, remember in yesterday's video about Jalen Hurts, which will be linked at the end, guys, of this video, when I made those predictive stats about what I think it will take for him to get a second contract and what the historic precedent has been for quarterbacks going into their 3rd year who earned a second contract, I told you guys, I thought he was going to get roughly around 30 to 31 attempts a game is what I think on average is going to happen. Some games I think will be more run dominant. Other games I think will be far more pass dominant than 30 or 31 attempts. With that said, I'm breaking this down as 8 targets a game going to DeVonta Smith. So that's 136 targets on the season. 7 targets a game going to A.J. Brown, which is 119 targets on the season. 5 targets a game going to Dallas Goedert, which is about 85 targets a game. So I'm saying that he's, even with the addition of A.J. Brown and the increase to the amount of throws to wide receiver 2, it will not affect the amount of targets that Dallas Goedert is going to see because he's that kind of talent. And in Quez Watkins, I have him holding steady at 4 attempts a game, 4 targets a game, which works its way out to 68 targets on the season, exactly what he had last year. So I basically held steady with Dallas Goedert, held steady with Quez Watkins, and it had that big uptick with A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith seeing targets because I think those guys, as the 1A and the 1B, it's going to be special in my opinion, guys. When you break that down, that's 408 targets. If you take the 30 to 31 attempts, I'm saying a game, and you average it. Now, I'm going to plus and minus 5%, guys, so stick with me. That works its way up to 485 to 535 passing attempts on the season for our quarterback. Now, I will tell you, the median is 510. So if you take it exactly what I said from last year, from yesterday's video about this upcoming season and the uptick, that would be 510 targets. So, at minimal, if we only have 485 targets on the year, and I say that 408 are going to those 4 players, it's 84% of our offense. 84% of our offense. Remember, 88% was spent on 6 players. The year prior, I'm saying that it could be as high as 88% if those targets come down lower, 5% lower than we think. Now, if it holds steady, what I think it'll be, so 408 out of 510 targets, 80%. So a 10% uptick from last season. 4 players got about 70%. I'm saying 4 players will probably get about 80% this year just because those 4 targets, those 4 players that are going to get the targets, those are 4 really, really good players in my opinion. And if we end up having, if I'm short on my estimate, right, I said 510. Say I'm short on it and they actually start averaging, 31, 32, even maybe a little higher passing attempts a game, and it comes up to 535 passing attempts on the season. So that's that plus 5% margin, guys. That would be 76%. So it would be a 6% uptick in what we saw. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's get into this just a tad bit more. I want to get into the insight of what I know about a couple of players here and what happened last season. So I want to be honest. Wide receivers 4 and wide receivers number 5 last year, we only played 3 total snaps on the season. 3 targets, I should say, on the season where you had 4 wide receivers on the field. Well, obviously, that means that your wide receiver 4 and your wide receiver 5 didn't get a ton of targets. Well, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Greg Ward Jr. accounted for 15 out of 457 targets. That's not a whole lot, guys. I mean, if you're not in that top 3 rotation, at least judging from last season, you ain't going to get a ton of targets here. The tight ends barely got targeted at all. If you were not Dallas Goedert and you were a tight end on this team last season, probably didn't see a ton of targets. It's hard to project it this year. Richard Rodgers had 10 targets. Tyree Jackson had 6. Jack Stahl had 5. Put it together, guys, it's 21 targets. This is where I think my projections get complicated. Kenneth Gainwell is a really good player. He's working hard, man. I think you got to find a way of getting Kenneth Gainwell involved, although he's not going to be that top 4 in my opinion. He's kind of that nice next level guy, right? You take those 102 to 127 targets I have left, and you find a way of getting some of those targets into a player like Kenneth Gainwell over the course of 17 games. I think you got to find a way of doing that. Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had a rough camp catching the football. But, man, once the season stepped in and kicked into gear, if you will, and he was on the field, he was okay. I mean, it really wasn't a big issue. I mean, I thought he played decently as a receiving option. They had 85 targets between them. Miles Sanders had 35. Kenneth Gainwell had 50. Kenneth Gainwell's is a little difficult to judge because I think they used him a lot in the slot. So not really as a true necessarily, running back. They were doing some like Devin Singleton things. If you guys remember Devin Singletary from Buffalo, the way that Buffalo would split him out wide and stuff, it's kind of like what we were doing with Kenneth Gainwell. I think Gainwell is going to be that kind of check down guy. I do. So that's complicated. The second complication to this math I'm providing you guys. The second complication is that Grant Calcaterra, I'm not too sure where the emphasis is there. This is a guy who goes back to Jalen Hurts' time at Oklahoma. This Eagles offense is being kind of built around Jalen Hurts if you pay attention closely, guys. A.J. Brown's a close personal friend of his. He's been brought in. Calcaterra was a former kind of safety, outlet for Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma when he played. They're bringing in Jalen Hurts guys. DeVonta Smith and Jalen Hurts played together, and they drafted him the number 10 spot last year. It does feel like they're kind of bringing in guys that have connections back to Jalen Hurts, if you will. I know we could talk about Zach Pascal's more of a connection back to the coaching staff, and he's probably wide receiver 4 unless they do something funky here. But my point being is that I almost expect there to be more targets than the 21 targets that 3 tight ends split. I think Calcaterra is going to make this football team first off. But not only do I think he's going to make the football team, I think Calcaterra is going to see 25 to 30 targets because he's a receiving option at the tight end position. I still think that Dallas Goedert is going to be the main guy, but I think when you put Calcaterra into the lineup, he will be there as a receiving threat. I could see him getting as many as 25 to 30 targets on the season. Now, it could be as low as 15 to 20, but I'm going to be optimistic and say 25 to 30 targets for tight end number 2. I think Jack Stahl can serve that role as the blocking specialist of your tight ends as a tight end 3. And then J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's probably a guy you can put on your practice squad and keep around, just in case there's injuries during the course of the year and you're still waiting for Tyree Jackson to get himself together in terms of suffering that injury late in the season and getting back here. I don't know, guys. I mean, we'll have to see how that plays out, to be honest with you. But the last thing I want to talk about, and this is an area that I can't predict, guys. I have a lot of useful information I've given you today. But I can't predict this. I don't know. Will the Eagles back down for how much 2 tight end sets they're playing? They played 34% last year, which is a healthy amount. I think I was pretty close to predicting that number last year. I think I said between 28 and I want to say, what did I say, guys? 28 and 32%, and they were a little high of that. So, I mean, they were right around what I was saying. It was a little higher than I thought, but, they also still had Zach Ertz early in the year, and then they kind of fell into using the run game and using a lot of deception in the running game with their tight ends to kind of block and to sneak out and fall out into the flat for some easy dump-off passes. I mean, there's definitely that element to things. Might they try to force things, right? We know the coaching staff likes Zach Pascal. Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, I think even Aaron Moorhead, I think, might have some, knowledge of who Zach Pascal is. I don't think they've worked together before, but, that's a young man that the coaching staff likes. Howie Roseman in this front office paid a first-round pick for Jalen Reagor. I don't think you can pull Quez Watkins off the field, guys. He's too much of an ascending player. You can't make the mistake of trying to play Jalen Reagor over him. I understand why some people are skeptical about that, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it would be a huge mistake to do it. Might they go into 4, wide receiver sets? Might they go into 1 personnel or 10 personnel and put Reagor on the field to get him more targets? I don't know. I think if you start trying to fit square pegs into round holes, you're going to have a problem. I hope they don't do that, but I can't make that prediction, guys, because I don't know. I can only present the information to you as I see it and let you know that tight end or wide receiver 4 and wide receiver 5, those guys only receive 15 targets on the year. And then when you look at the tight end 2 position, between 3 guys, 3 guys last season, Richard Rodgers, Jack Stahl, Tyree Jackson, those dudes only saw 21 targets. We know the running backs are going to get checkdowns. They're going to get 2 or 3 checkdowns a game. We know that. Maybe as high as 4. That's the lion's share of the targets, guys. I see the 4 wheels of this bus being A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins. The wheels on the bus go round and round, guys. I think that's going to be the focal point of the offense. I think the talent level among those 4 is really high. I think we have very good complementary role players that can come in and have a game or 2 where they just kind of shine on you. They may not have a lion's share of the targets, but they're going to have a game or 2 where they really just kind of emerge on you, which will be Calcaterra, which would be like a Kenneth Gainwell type. You got good depth pieces in like Zach Pascal. He's not a starter in my opinion, guys. I think he's a depth piece. But I do think he's a little underrated, and I think he had a really good season with Nick Sirianni and with Kevin Patullo the year before they left. We'll see, guys. Leave your thoughts down below. What do you think? I gave you my opinion, guys. I think that when you break it down, it's going to go like this. DeVonta Smith's going to be the guy who gets the most targets. He'll be the volume guy. I think A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert will be the dirty work guys. They'll be the conversions, the red zones. Get me that first down on 3rd down, right? Give me that red zone score. I think that's what those 2 guys are going to be. They're going to do a lot of the dirty work, and they're going to see some targets. I got A.J. Brown getting 9 more targets than he got last season. Mind you, though, A.J. Brown missed 3 games, so that is a kind of a tick down for what he was seeing in Tennessee. And I got Dallas Goedert kind of holding steady at 85. He had 84 targets the year prior. I think he's going to get just as many targets, even though A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith are here. And to be honest with you, I'm not completely sold that A.J. Brown's going to have fewer targets than DeVonta Smith. I think the coverage will dictate that. I think if you bracket DeVonta Smith and you try to go one-on-one with A.J. Brown, then A.J. Brown's going to get those targets. But if you try to bracket A.J. Brown and you try to lock up your best corner on DeVonta Smith one-on-one, I think DeVonta Smith is probably going to get a pretty good amount of targets, right? I think that A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith drawing as much attention as they're going to draw from coverage, it's really going to help the middle of the field. That's going to really help Dallas Goedert operate. That's going to help Quez Watkins operate those seams. Because let me tell you, if I'm Nick Sirianni, and I see that they're bracketing to one side, if they're bracketing AJ, if they're bracketing DeVonta, then I'm going to go ahead and take Quez, and I'm going to put Quez on that same side. And I'm going to tell Quez, attack the seam with authority. Because if they don't pay attention and I can high-low them, I'm going to high-low the crap out of them. I think there's something here, guys. I think the middle of the field is going to be open to be worked on. I think, you got guys like Kenneth Gainwell that are sneaky good. Calcaterra, I'm excited to see if he's fully healthy. I mean, I am concerned with the amount of concussions he suffered, but, it's a guy that Jalen Hurts spoke really highly of. Leave your thoughts down below, guys. Tell me, what do you think, guys? I appreciate y'all's time and attention, and I'll see you guys on the next video.